Hey everyone, today's video is the second part of my Patreon exclusive series, What If Ash Used His Old Pokemon, which has just begun its Sinnoh arc. If you want to gain access to all the parts of this story, as well as all my content early, you can become a patron for just $5 a month. And while I'm asking for stuff, please take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already, since currently less than half my viewers are subscribed, as you can see from this stat bar, which is a shame, since this is a great way to make sure you never miss an upload, while also helping me to grow. Also, don't forget to check out my second channel, the Pickled Dill podcast, where I do what-ifs on everything that isn't Pokemon, and my Discord server, where you can talk to me directly. Links to all of this awesome stuff can be found in the description of this video, but I've rambled on long enough, so let's get into the story. The next morning, following Ash's victory over Roxanne, he and Brock are on the ferry to Juford Island, in the site of Ash's third Hoenn gym battle. Mercifully, there are no complications, and so the pair along with their Pokemon enjoy a fun-filled morning observing the new water-type Pokemon that passed by the boat. By mid-morning they manage to make landfall, and though Ash is eager to have his gym battle, his stomach says otherwise, and when Pikachu expresses similar hunger, that settles things, with them stopping off at the Pokemon Center for lunch. Following that, Ash is last able to head for the gym, a large building overlooking the ocean, and as he, Brock, and Pikachu approach, they cross paths with a young man who is exiting the gym with a Meowth dressed in a hat and boots by his side. Judging by the smile on his face, the young man has just won his badge, and when Ash looks to him, he confirms this, before introducing himself as Tyson. Ash and Brock then do likewise, swapping stories and coming to learn that both Ash and Tyson are trying to gain entry to the Hoenn League. However, not everything is so amiable, as nestled in a nearby bush, Meowth of Team Rocket is fuming, having caught sight of Tyson's Meowth and deemed the way he is dressed as an insult to all of Meowth kind. Kindly, James says that he doesn't know, since he thinks Meowth would look quite dapper with a nice pair of boots, but this just earns him a scratch across the face, resulting in Jessie having to cover his mouth when his yelp almost alerts the twerps to their presence. Sternly, she then tells her two colleagues to cut the nonsense, since they're here to steal Pikachu and whatever Pokemon this gym leader has. This at last regains the focus of James and Meowth, who each give a thumbs up before getting down to business conducting their next devious scheme. Having bid goodbye to Tyson and promised to have a battle sometime, Ash and Brock now step into the gym, where they are greeted by a man with wild blue hair who insists on calling everyone dude. Surmising that this must be Broly, the gym leader, Ash requests a battle, a favor the surfer is happy to oblige, saying that he's got time to kill since the waveage just hasn't been quite right these last couple of days. He and Ash then make their way onto the battlefield, where it's decided their battle will be a 2-on-2, with Broly choosing to open with Marchop, while Ash goes with Cyndaquil, feeling the little echidna deserves some attention. Grinning, Broly calls this a gnarly choice, though as he is about to learn, troublesome might have been a better word. For with a simple flamethrower, Cyndaquil is able to put paid to Broly's entire strategy, as Marchop's roll with the punches technique doesn't quite work so well when it's on fire, and the ground it's standing in is on fire, and the ground it's about to roll onto is, well, you get the idea. Seeing this, Broly attempts to shift things up, calling for a cross chop, but knowing this could mean trouble for the fire starter, Ash has Cyndaquil use Smokescreen. With a cry of its own name, Cyndaquil belches a torrent of smoke which blankets the field, obscuring Marchop's view and allowing Cyndaquil to get behind it. From there it only takes a well-placed Swift into the fighting type's back to down it, putting Ash in the lead. Next up for the gym leader is Makuhita, who like its predecessor attempts to go on the offensive. However, before it can lay a gloved hand on Cyndaquil, a terrible crashing sound from above draws everyone's attention. Looking up, Ash and Co see Team Rocket's balloon having caved in the ceiling, while inside its basket, the trio of villains recite their motto. When they are done, they pull out a trio of extendable hands, and with sinister glee fire the appendages at Pikachu, Cyndaquil, and Makuhita, snatching them up and slowly reeling them in. Furiously, Ash demands the thieves give back their Pokemon, but this just earns him a raspberry, as Team Rocket declare that Ash needs to get acquainted with the concept of stealers keepers. Meanwhile, Cyndaquil has begun firing a full-power flamethrower at the hand holding it, attacking it with all its might in an attempt to break free. Cackling, Meowth taunts the little fire type better give it up, since that hand is pure steel, so it would take a flame of over 1,000 degrees to melt it. Unfortunately for Meowth, Cyndaquil is not discouraged, instead taking this as a challenge, as with a fierce cry, white light begins to engulf its body. A moment later, Quilava fires off a renewed flamethrower, and with its newly heightened heat output, this is able to turn the steel hand clutching it bright red. Now much more malleable, Quilava is able to wriggle free and run up the extendable arm, its eyes set squarely on Team Rocket. Leaping into the balloon basket, Quilava's first port of call is to stomp on Meowth's head, with him calling out for his comrades to grab that stupid stoat. However, this is just what Quilava wants, once, as when the pair of bunglers lunge at it, it simply ignites its head and tail flames, blasting them both in the face with fire and causing them to stagger back in pain. Now with the villains immobilized, all that's left to do is rescue Pikachu and Makuhita, and not wanting to burn its friends, Quilava does this with a pair of swifts that slice through the wrists of the extendable arms, allowing the captured Pokemon to fall safely into their trainer's arms. Then follows suit, leaping from the balloon and landing beside Pikachu and Ash, with the latter calling for a combined Flamethrower Thunderbolt combo that easily sends the crooks blasting off again. Now that the danger has passed, Ash turns his full attention to Quilava, thanking it for saving Pikachu and congratulating it on its evolution. Yipping happily, Quilava beams at Ash, while Brawly and Makuhita approach, with Brawly praising Quilava's spunk and saying that Ash more than earned the Knuckle badge if he'd like it. However, here Ash declines, saying he'll take the badge after he and Quilava beat him and Makuhita, a choice Brawly calls righteous, as he and his partner return to their side of the field. Picking up where they left off, Brawly takes the first move, with Makuhita using Arm Thrust to swipe at Quilava, but the Eruption Pokemon is faster, darting back and bathing Makuhita in flames. Nonetheless, the little fighting type stays strong, and so changes tack, going now for a knockoff, which catches Quilava under the chin, causing it to stagger back. Seeing an opening, Brawly next has Makuhita try and grab hold of the fire type for a seismic toss, but knowing how devastating those can be, Ash has Quilava use Quick Attack to dart out of the way before coming back to strike the Guts Pokemon's flank. In turn, Makuhita at last manages to get off an Arm Thrust at such close range, but as Quilava is pushed back, it uses this range to fire off another Flamethrower, which after all it has endured is too much for Makuhita, taking it down and earning Ash his Knuckle badge. Beaming, Ash runs onto the field and wraps Quilava in a hug, while the hot-headed Weasel nuzzles him affectionately. Together they approach Brawly, who is happy to present them with their badge, thanking them for a great match, and wishing them a tubular ride the rest of the way to the Hoenn League. With no fairies until tomorrow morning, Ash and Brock decide to explore Juford Island a little, stopping off at the Pokemon Center first. They run back into Tyson, who as it turns out plans to do likewise, having his sights set on an abandoned gold mine not too far from Juford Town. Figuring it could contain some interesting Pokemon, the two Cantonian boys decide to tag along, and in a short amount of time, the trio find themselves boarding a minecart and rolling into the depths of the underground tunnel network, unaware of a pair of glinting eyes watching them from the shadows. However, this ignorance is short-lived, as the owner of those eyes soon makes itself known, dropping down from the ceiling and latching onto Brock's face, causing him to scream and fall out of the cart. As Tyson grabs hold of the control shift, bringing the cart to a screeching halt, Ash has Pikachu leap from his shoulder and blast this unknown assailant with a Thunderbolt. Or rather, he tries to, as the mystery Pokemon deftly leaps off Brock at the last moment, allowing him to take the brunt of the electric attack, while it just chortles from the side. Awkwardly, Ash and Pikachu apologize to their friend, before Ash pulls out his Pokédex and scans the mystery Pokemon, learning that it's called Sableye. However, before more can be said, Sableye scuttles up Ash's arm and snatches the Pokédex from his hand, before bounding onto the roof and dangling the device just out of its owner's reach. Furiously, Ash calls Sableye a little jerk, but Brock says he isn't so sure it's malicious, since by the way it's laughing, it looks like it's just trying to play with Ash. Nodding, Tyson agrees with this assessment, adding they haven't seen any signs of other Pokemon living here, and surely the sound of battle would have drawn them, so what if Sableye lives here all alone? This makes the ghostly goblin pause, sighing its own name in a way that tells them all plainly that Tyson is right. Giving it a smile, Brock says that he sees how that would be a lonely existence, before adding that if it's just looking for attention, there are easier ways than pulling pranks, and if it wants a friend, that certainly isn't the way to go about making one. Cocking its head curiously now, Sableye makes its way closer to the breeder, who continues that while practical jokes can be funny, it's important that they're not all so mean, since this will just drive people away rather than bringing them closer. Ears drooping, Sableye nods, then with an outstretched hand offers Ash back his Pokédex, which the boy takes with his thanks, even admitting that it's pretty fast and could make a good battler if it tried. With fences mended, Sableye becomes the trio's guide, showing them around the mine, and even into its inner sanctum in the control room. While they run into no other Pokemon, it is fascinating to visit a place no other human has been able to reach for decades, and so when it comes time to leave, the three boys all feel that it was an afternoon well spent. However, it seems they'll not be going home empty-handed, as when Brock emerges from the shadow of the mine back into the sunset, he feels a hand grip his pants leg. Looking down, he spots Sableye, a pleading expression on its face, and knows what it wants immediately. With a smile, he asks if it would like to be his friend and join him on his journey, causing the Ghost Dark type to yip happily, and taking this to mean yes, he pulls a Pokeball from his belt and bops Sableye on the head, adding it to his team. Following this, the rest of the evening plays out uneventfully, with Tyson deciding to stay on Jupiter a few more days, while the following morning Ash and Brock catch the ferry to their next destination, which is Slateport City, putting them well ahead of their canon counterparts. Thankfully, there is no gym in Slateport, meaning the heroes can finally slow down a bit, since while Ash is antsy to get to Moorville, there are enough new sights to attract his attention, such as the Oceanic Museum and the beautiful beaches. One Slateport attraction the heroes do not get to enjoy is a Pokémon contest. As the Slateport contest is almost a month away, and not wanting to wait around here that long, Brock says they'll just have to catch one down the line. Finally, after several days of R&R, Ash and Brock depart, heading up Route 110, their eyes set squarely on Moorville and Ash's 4th badge. For the most part, the trip is uneventful, with the most notable occurrence being the time they spend in Misty Village, where Ash is pressured into impersonating their legendary hero. The events of this go much like in canon, and after a young boy named Thatcher finds the ability to believe in himself and his Pokémon, Ash and Brock depart, arriving in Moorville a couple days later. This too plays out like in canon, with Pikachu getting overcharged by Watson's Raikou robot and sweeping the gym, earning Ash the Dynamo badge with no effort. However, here things do take a turn, as when Pikachu comes down with an electric fever, it is worse than in canon, since unlike the main timeline, he did not get one en route to Hoenn, meaning his body never built up a resistance. As a result, it takes the rest of the day and night to treat Pikachu, meaning that when Ash goes to inform Watson that he did not deserve his win, the old man is already gone, having started a new journey to find himself with Electrike by his side. With a somewhat heavy heart, Ash and Brock leave Moorville as well, heading northwest through the Valley of Steel, which connects Moorville City to Lawbridge Town. It is a barren rocky canyon with very little sign of life aside from the occasional movement of a rock-type Pokémon, with even these being very scarce, and often a dive for cover at the sound of Ash and Brock's approach. Confused, the pair wonder why this place is so lifeless, though they are not left to wander long, as a few hours into their journey, a vast shadow passes overhead. Looking up, Ash and Brock see the silhouette of a large flying type soaring through the air, its identity obscured by the shadow it casts. At present, this aerial behemoth seems not to have noticed them, as it continues its patrol, but every so often it reappears, its shadow blanketing the valley. Finally, night falls, and so Ash and Brock make camp. Since the ground is nothing but pure rock, pitching tents isn't quite an option, but ever resourceful, Brock has a solution, enlisting the help of Ash's Quilava to make them a flame around which they can position their sleeping bags. However, in the pitch darkness, this flame lights up the night like a flare, and draws the ire of the mystery flying type, but as it turns out is a particularly territorial Skarmory. Swooping the travelers, Skarmory screeches a challenge at the humans and Pokemon alike, before swiping at Quilava with a steel wing. Yelling angrily at the big bully bird to leave his buddy alone, Ash has Pikachu use Thunderbolt to scare it off, but this bird of prey is not so easily frightened, gaining a bit of height only to come back down with a more successful steel wing, which catches Pikachu and sends him into the air. Thankfully, the electric rodent is not without his own tricks, and at such close range resorts to Thunder, really wanting to pack a punch. This does massive damage to Skarmory, who looks on the verge of fainting, but even still it stays strong, lashing out with a volley of pecks that Pikachu narrowly avoids with his vaunted speed. Pikachu then responds with another close-range Thunder, once more badly injuring Skarmory, but the fierce avian has no intention of backing down when these strangers have come into its territory. Seeing this, Brock urges Ash to find a way to end this, since if Skarmory keeps fighting it will badly hurt itself and there's no Pokemon Center around for miles. Nodding, Ash can only think of one surefire way to bring this battle to a close, and so pulling a Pokeball from his belt, he lobs it at the wounded steel flying type. Hitting the ground, the ball rattles wildly as just as with everything, Skarmory puts up a fight till the bitter end. However, in the end it does fall still, before vanishing into the ether, signifying Skarmory's capture. From here the rest of the trip through the Valley of Steel passes smoothly, with the heroes even getting a chance to see some of the valley's inhabitants now that Skarmory's tyrannical rule has been brought to an end. Finally they reach a Pokemon Center, and when Ash calls Professor Oak to see if Skarmory had been received, he finds the man looking harried, with a collection of fresh cuts and peck marks, which suggests that Skarmory is definitely there. Trying to keep his usual joviality, Oak asks Ash how his Hoenn journey is going, though he is occasionally interrupted by the distant sound of metallic screeches, coupled with the all-too-familiar bark of a certain grass starter. Rubbing the back of his head awkwardly, Ash apologizes for Skarmory's wild disposition, but the professor says it's quite alright, he just wishes it would calm down, since it's been tearing up the lab and trying to fight all of Ash's other Pokemon since the moment it arrived. Thankfully, Bulbasaur has been able to keep it from doing anything serious, but with Charizard at the Characific Valley, and both Quilava and Pikachu with Ash, they haven't really had anyone who can fully subdue it. Still feeling awkward, Ash says that if the professor wants, he can take Skarmory with him him for a while, an idea Oak calls very wise. A moment later, Skarmory comes into view, being dragged by Bulbasaur, who has deployed Vine Whips, one around its beak to muzzle it, and the other around its feet to keep it from slashing anyone. When it is in position, Oak raises Skarmory's ball, and as the metal bird is reverted to red light, a relieved look crosses both his and Bulbasaur's faces. Oak then lays the ball in the transfer machine, while after a moment of thought, Ash does the same with Quilava's, figuring his mentor will enjoy a chance to get to study the fire starter in its new form. A moment later, light engulfs both balls, then in no time at all they are swapped, with Ash taking hold of Skarmory's ball, while Oak brings out Quilava, who is happy to be back in these familiar settings. Smiling, Ash tells both Quilava and Bulbasaur to look after themselves, since he may have need for both of them before long, then after giving his thanks to Professor Oak, ends the call, stowing Skarmory's ball in his belt with plans to bring it out another time, preferably somewhere spacious, and with plenty of cover in case it's still mad about being captured. As it turns out, mad is an understatement, as each time the steel type is released from its ball, it immediately attempts to attack anyone or anything in sight. Due to having been the apex predator of the entire Valley of Steel, it is already an immensely powerful Pokemon, and so these berserker rages prove something of a problem, with it taking Pikachu often accompanied by another of Ash's Pokemon to take it down so that Ash can safely return it to its ball. Though these attempts at bonding are dreadfully unsuccessful, it does act as good training, with all of Ash's and even Brock's Pokemon getting a good workout with each meal as they attempt to subdue the rabid Skarmory. Finally, after a few more days of travel, Ash and Brock arrive in Loveridge Town, and unsurprisingly, Ash's first stop after the Pokemon Center is the gym. Due to being ahead of canon, Flannery's grandfather, Old Man Moore, is still the Loveridge gym leader, and when he sees the strapping young challenger before him, he is more than willing to give him the battle that he craves. Heading outside to the walled battlefield, Ash is met by the gym's judge, a young woman with long red hair who warns him to be careful, as her grandpa used to be an Elite Four member, so if he holds back even a little, he'll get steamrolled. And even if he doesn't, he'll probably still get steamrolled, since her Gramps is the best of the best. Excitement at the thought of battling a member of the Elite Four overriding any sense of worry the boy might have, Ash tells the old gym leader to bring it on, and with a smile, Mr. Moore does just that, bringing forth Typhlosion, while Ash opens with Totodile. Due to tight matchups, Ash feels confident that this will be a breeze for his bitey Water Croc, but this is quickly proven incorrect as Moore calls for a Flame Wheel. At once Typhlosion goes barreling forward at blistering speed, and as Totodile is still mid-dance, it is caught by the attack, being sent flying backwards into the garden wall where it hangs unconscious. Ash is speechless at this quick defeat, but brushing this off moves on to Plan B, Phanpy. Eagerly, the little blue elephant rolls its way onto the field, and after some encouragement from Pikachu, begins its classic rollout strategy, dealing a super effective hit. This earns the praise of Old Man Moore, who credits Ash and Phanpy for actually being able to hit Typhlosion, however he's afraid they won't be repeating the feat. At once, Typhlosion's relaxed expression turns serious, and on its trainer's command it bathes itself in flames once more for another Flame Wheel. It then begins pursuing Phanpy, who had been coming around to strike again, but at Ash's cry has instead begun to flee. Frantically, the ground type weaves around the battlefield, staying one step ahead of Typhlosion, but with each second that passes, Phanpy loses a little more of its lead, until finally the blazing badger is right on top of the baby elephant. In a last-ditch effort, Ash calls for a defense curl, hoping this will give Phanpy the ability to endure the hit it seemingly cannot avoid, but all this achieves is making Phanpy a stationary target rather than a moving one, as even with its up defense, when Typhlosion hits it, it is immediately knocked out. Sighing deeply, Ash recalls Phanpy and reaches for his belt, though truthfully he has no idea who to send out. Aside from Pikachu, all his Pokemon are weak to fire, and even Pikachu may not be that good of a choice, as with that blistering speed, Old Man Moore's Typhlosion would likely catch and barbecue his buddy in an instant. Now if he's gonna win, he needs to approach this battle differently, and so with a bat of that good old Ash unpredictability, he grabs hold of a Pokeball at last, and cries the name of his final Pokemon, Skarmory. This choice surprises everyone, though Ash looks fired up, having figured that based on what he's seen, Typhlosion is a close quarters fighter, so aerial mobility might be the key to victory. Cawing pridefully, the armor bird gives Ash a hateful glare. However, luckily for him, it soon catches something it despises even more than its trainer, a fire type. Not even waiting on Ash to give it an order, Skarmory wildly charges at Typhlosion, attempting a steel wing until Ash calls out a warning that Typhlosion's specialty is close range fighting. Hearing this, Skarmory aborts its run and returns to the air, not wanting to give its natural enemy any advantages. Erroneously, Ash thinks this means Skarmory is finally ready to be his friend and listen to him, but this is promptly proved false when the steel bird hisses at him to be quiet, since this is a duel between itself and the fire type. As this has been going on, Old Man Moore has watched with an interested smile on his face, though when Ash says the Typhlosion is a close quarters fighter, he actually lets out a small chuckle before telling the boy that an Elite Force Pokemon cannot have such a glaring limitation. To prove the truthfulness of this statement, he tells Typhlosion to use Flamethrower, and as a mighty jet of flame soars up at Skarmory, the Armor Bird and its trainer reach the same conclusion: nowhere is safe. Electing to throw caution to the wind, Ash tells Skarmory to try its Steel Wing plan, and so upping its speed with agility, the bird of prey flies at its foe, narrowly dodging all the flamethrowers that come its way until it can strike Typhlosion in the stomach with a Steel Wing. Excitedly, Ash whoops, cheering for Skarmory's success, but as the battle bird begins to fly away, it becomes immensely obvious how little this hit actually did. To make matters worse, Typhlosion is still more than capable of attacking, scorching Skarmory's retreating back with another flamethrower and sending it clattering to the ground where it lies unable to battle. And just like that, the match is over, with Ash's 3 Pokemon having been unable to even come close to defeating Old Man Moore's Typhlosion. Understandably, Ash is a bit dejected by this outcome, but Old Man Moore tells him not to be so hard on himself, since he held his own admirably. He then gives the boy a searching look, and asks if he trains alongside his Pokemon. Confused, Ash asks what he means, and this seems to confirm the old man's theory, with him saying that after so long as a battler, one gets to know the type of trainers out there, and he can tell that so far Ash has gotten where he is through guts and innate skill. This is certainly not a bad thing, but it has its limits, as the key to greatness is hard work, and not just in short bursts to prepare for gym battles or leagues, but constant training and striving. It's like fanning a flame which, unless given constant attention, will go out, but if properly tended to can grow into something marvelous. Nodding, Ash says he thinks he understands, and so with a smile back on his face, departs the Lava Ridge gym, declaring that he will work hard alongside his Pokemon, just like Mr. Moore said, and return only when he and his Pokemon have truly come together to train. Smile on his own face, Old Man Moore replies that he will eagerly await that day, genuine hope for the future of this young man, and the next generation of trainers light in his eyes. And that's where we'll leave things. How will Ash's new outlook on training affect him as a trainer moving forward? Can he and his Pokemon come together to get a win against a former Elite Four member? And what adventures await him and Brock during the remainder of their Hoenn adventure? Find out as the journey continues.